Hi gang. So I was going to make a monster egg for something called safety check that I'm going to be shooting soon. And at the same time I was going to do the monster octopus. But as it turns out, with the size I want to do it, these balloons are not blowing up egg shape at all. Matter of fact, they're coming out to a much nicer circle at this size than they do when they get bigger. So I'm going to have to use the egg itself, and I'll do that in a separate video. Right now what I've got though for the paper mache project to start the octopus is a tray of about half glue, half water. Needs to be mixed a little bit more, but it's there. A balloon, which will be our octopus's body, and a bunch of strips of newspaper to start the form, and then some brown paper to finish it off, because this stuff makes a great top layer for painting and all that. So I'm going to assume you guys know how to apply paper mache strips. I mean, it's pretty easy. You dunk it in there, you get it on, you clean it off a little bit, and you put it on. I'm going to start doing it around this balloon, which is getting gorilla hair on it from another project, to about where it'll lay flat, because I don't need the whole round to be there, and once we pop the balloon, this will be gone. I have tried reusing these balloons, mostly once they've been paper mache. They do not reinflate real well, so see how that goes. But there's going to be a bunch of different steps on this. That's what I'm showing to you. It's not going to just be paper macheing a balloon to get the shape of the octopus. We're going to use aluminum foil to get some tentacles on there, some wires to make them bendable. I'm going to try and make some paper mache clay with shredded paper to put some eyes on. Trying to decide if I'm going to use eyeball eyes and make them a little creepier where they move. Haven't figured that out yet. We're also doing a little bit of, in this film, sort of CG tentacles, which I guess I can show you guys in another video if you're interested. So comment down below if you want to see how we're doing two-dimensional Photoshop animated tentacles. Alright, but I'm going to get started on this. I'm going to turn the camera off before I start the paper mache because things get real messy, and I'll be back after it's dried a bit. Yeah, it's been an hour, so I probably used a little bit too much water in my mixture. One of the things I like about using the pie tray, it's got a top, so I can let things dry. Any unused glue, I can come back and go ahead and try and salvage. Real quick too, while I'm down here, look at how nice and smooth that is. That plasticky kind of, that's all just from paper mache. I haven't even done the brown over this yet. I left this for monster mask, and I cut this off the bottom to get my head in. But I'm looking at it thinking, this is pretty good 2 halves of shoulder pads. And I need some astronaut armor coming up, so I'm probably going to use this for that. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to go ahead and Mod Podge the top of this to smooth it out a bit, do one more layer of the brown paper mache on here for that, which I probably should just for good measure, and since I'm already here. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and put another layer of the newspaper on here, and then in case I don't mention it later, I probably will, since my octopus is going to have its tentacles coming out here, these will get extra strips of framework. This is probably only going to be 2 or 3 layers. I don't need this to be, able to hold up the weight of the world. But down here I'm going to need some strength, because it's going to be what it stands on and where the tentacles attach and all that other stuff. Okay, so I took the balloon out a little earlier than I should. This top part feels nice and solid. These around here were not ready yet, and did it at like 4 in the morning, so I didn't want to pop the balloon, which is the normal method. So I tried squeezing it out because I didn't want to wake my wife up. Our bed was right over the workshop. And so I broke a bunch of edges here. The nice thing about making something is if you break part of it in the process, I mean, you know how you made it, you can usually fix it. So I'm going to reinforce more of these sides here, and then we're going to work on closing the bottom, but you can see, that's our basic octopus shape. It'll be browned out in a bit. Got a little board waiting for stuff to dry. Started making a spaceship. I got the shoulder pads here. They're wet with paint, so I can't pick them up to show you at the moment. But so one of the things I did start to do, I know I told you guys I wasn't going to get into a big thing on paper mache, but you can go 2 or 3 sheets thick per layer, but you want to let each layer dry a little bit in between. because just putting more and more wet means the middle is going to stay wet forever, and you will never get that nice little smooth inside that you get against a balloon, and that hard, chunky. It'll always be a little bit soft because it's wet. The other thing I noticed, though, is doing the balloon smaller, longer strips were not working great. They don't want to fold over the top and stuff, go around the edge. So I made them shorter. I'm going into even smaller pieces. In the end, smaller pieces will actually give you better edges. And I was one of those people who like to cut it with scissors until I read somewhere, or actually I think it was a video I saw, that these little fibers you get when you, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, those little fibers on the end that stick out when you tear the paper actually give you softer edges when you lay it down. They give you a better place. See, it's soft right there. They give you a better place to feather it out and get a smoother look in your final paint. So tearing the paper is the way to go. I'm going to mix up some more stuff and then let it dry again. Nice spring day out there, so at least I'm getting to do yard work while stuff dries instead of just trying to figure out what else to do with my time. So yeah, that's where we're at. Back in a bit. Alright, so I know I said I wasn't going to make this like a class on paper mache, but I am going to let you know one little secret that I like to do. It's not so much a secret. For the top layer, not only do I like to use the brown, which by the way, listen to that, should still be a little drier. I can feel some wet spots in there. So this is still going to need some time before I can put anything else on here. But I like to take a major direction with this, so usually front to back for my creatures, so that you get a kind of skin pattern going this way. If you want your skin pattern going this way, then go ahead and put your paper on that way. So here it comes front to back, front to back, front to back, all the longer pieces going that way. I haven't closed up the bottom for structure yet. That's probably what I'm going to be doing next. The other thing is, like, you can't just lay this down on the table while it's wet, because even with this plastic wrap, I've had this stick hard to the table, and you try to pull it up and you lose pieces of it. So I was waiting for this to dry enough to be able to pop that. And then got some spots here where I didn't get the brown paper on there. And the way you can see those is if you hold it up to like a work light, you'll see light coming through. You probably can't see it on camera there because of how I have the light angle, but you'll see light coming through the inside, and that's where your patches are that need a little bit more strengthening. And then to be able to put paper strips across here, I need to finish this mesh off. You use wireframe, some hardware mesh, whatever. I'm trying to keep this mostly soft and light, so I'll probably be using this cardboard and another strip here and another strip here, and then the paper mache will lay right across it like that. The cardboard I'm using is just stripped off an old pizza box. Doesn't really matter once you get the paper mache on there. The nice thing about the cardboard is it'll stick to this too, and it'll harden up just like the paper, real nice. And then we will have a nice solid body for our octopus, and then we're going to put its tentacles on. Two, hopefully two, and probably two in the back. Because I don't want to have a hexapus, I want to have an octopus. But basically it's more of a giant cephalopod. It doesn't really have to be an octopus. It just has to be a monster with tentacles that looks like it was at the bottom of the ocean. So I've got to go find some aluminum foil I can steal from the kitchen, and we'll be back. Alright gang, so I'm standing up, so you know it's a big one today, right? Actually, I'm in a little bit of a rush. I got some outdoor work to do, but I wanted to get started on this, and I wanted to show you part of this process. I already finished one tentacle on here, because I wanted to kind of make sure it was going to work before I started showing you, and I do have 3 other tentacles to do before we use this in the movie, and possibly 7 more to do before, it's an octopus, because it's only going to have 4 legs. It's going to be some kind of Quadrapus Sea Monster. But, the head's rounder than an octopus. I do want it to look a little more monstery. What I did want to make sure I did, though, was make a flexible tentacle so I could pose it, maybe do some stop motion animation with it. I do have a 2D tentacle that I've been using Puppet Warp to stop motion animate. Comment down below if you want to see how that's done. There have been other videos I've done on how to stop motion animate 2D photos in Photoshop. But we could always do one specifically on the tentacle, because there was a lot of work. Well, I should call it an arm because it's got suckers all the way up, but specifically on the monster arm, because there was a lot of work involved with it. It was basically, it started out as a picture from Pexels of an octopus arm as food. It had been cooked. But anyway, so this piece here, this big chunk right here, I did paper mache on. So let me get started here showing you real quick. This is some scrap wire right here. It's a very thin gauge. It is because I've used thicker gauges and they always want to bounce back, so they're not great for stop mo. But the thinner stuff against the latex has trouble fighting a bit, and it wants to snap. Now, one of the great things about using it for I'll call it a tentacle. One of the great things about using it for a tentacle is there's no bones, so it doesn't keep getting stressed on the same points. And if you keep stressing the same point of a wire, as you know, it's a great way to break it, right? So with the tentacle, that's not as big of a worry. The other thing we do is we twist it around itself. So we take a piece. You can either just fold it in half, or since I'm using scrap for this one, we're going to twist it around itself here and give it a little bit more strength that way. I want to make sure this is around it's a little shorter than the other one, but it's fairly close to the same length, so I just won't be able to bend the tip as much. You twist this up, making sure especially all the parts that are going to be bent a lot are twisted a lot. And then I have pre-drilled to make sure it lines up with this tentacle on this side. Another hole. It's super, super small. I can't even see it, and I'm here live. Right there on the side there, lined up with this one. And we're going to take the wire where it's split, and we're going to get them close together. And I do kind of wish I hadn't done the cardboard armature yet, because it's been getting in the way of this part of the process. We're going to take the wire, we're going to fish it through that hole. And I did use a little Harbor Freight drill master to cut the hole, because you could just punch in with an awl or a knife or something, but with this being pretty solid now, it's less flexible, and you do tend to risk cracking it if you just try to punch through like I'm about to do now with this piece of looped wire. So you get the wire through where there's two pieces. There you go, and I just heard, okay, that was the cardboard pushing away. Then once you're on the inside, you won't be able to see this at all. I'll poke the wire out. So you've got these two pieces of wire inside now. Separate them, unless you did something stupid like twist them too tightly like I did, and bend out a hook in there. And so now it won't pull out, right? Then I'm going to have to turn the camera off because it's going to take some time. We're just going to dab some hot glue on here. If you want, you can add some paper mache on the inside here. It makes a great hold for that wire to not poke backwards. But we're also going to make sure our tentacle comes off the body in the triangle we want. We're going to build up a little bit of paper here and harden it up with the glue and the paper mache, so that this piece is not flexible at all. All the flexing starts here. Then we're going to wrap this in aluminum foil and paper. Now, you don't have to use paper. The more aluminum foil you use, the more bending and rebending you'll be able to do. But aluminum foil is not super cheap, and it's not free like scrap paper. So I use some scrap paper here to thicken this up. And I kind of like this weird scaly shape, because when you see the one that I'm doing the puppet warp animation with, it's a fairly good fit for this color. This is barn red mixed with latex, by the way. So what I do, instead of buying a latex paint and painting over, I use an acrylic paint. I put dabs of it into my casting latex. I'm using casting latex because this is only 2 coats, and it got it nice and thick like this. But so it's paper, aluminum foil. Then I used good old blue painter's tape. I'm not even sure this is a necessary step. It gives it this purpley color, which I kind of like. and I wanted something papery for the latex to stick to instead of the aluminum foil. I'm afraid it'll flake off of that. I did specifically leave some spots down here blank with just foil, so after I've used it a bit I can see how that works. But I'd rather waste painter's tape than latex, because that stuff is a fortune, and it takes like 3 weeks to get here. So if I run out in the middle of a project, I have problems. But once we wrap the foil, this with the paper and the foil, and then put the tape over it, then we start latexing it. What's nice is the latex, you can see, I mean, it holds everything super tight in place. The foil gives it more bendability. The latex is completely flexible. The tape is flexible. Do not paper mache anything here that you want to be able to bend. But I'm going to pause it now so I can get a little bit ahead on some of the stuff, and then I'll show you step by step as I do things. And I'm probably going to be doing the other side too. Alright, we'll be back soon. So I'm back. Here's our quadrupus now. See the original tentacle? These wires hanging out? Roughly the same length. And the beginnings of, and I just used newspaper for this paper mache here because it's all going to get covered with latex and tape and, you know, be much more solid. I'm probably going to go ahead and do one more layer of this and let it dry overnight. Because you can see I didn't fold it and fin it out as much as this one. So this may not have been necessary to go this hard with this wide, but I'm probably going to go ahead and when I put the regular paper in, do it. But so just wanted you guys to see how the paper mache is just on there, kind of closing it up, but it gives it that nice solid, you can hang it from the, we're good to go. So, yeah, we'll be back in a bit. Right. So I think I'm realizing, and by proxy you'll be realizing, that this big flare to give it some solid wasn't really necessary. This is more looks. So to get it on these other three, and as you can see, this is 2 layers of paper mache. It's pretty hard. Holding it in place pretty good. It'll give you a place to grab when you bend. See, it already broke a little bit of that. When you bend the tentacle, so that it's got a solid place in the quadrupus. But now I want to match this flare because otherwise I have to cut it down. Plus, I do kind of like the way it looks coming off the body. I think octopus arms and tentacles and stuff tend to come off and taper as they go. So I've got some scrap paper that we're wrapping around the arm like this, closing it up as we go along and letting it flare out at the back here. Right? I mean, this is all super simple stuff. Could glue this in place. I think I did that with this one, but don't really need to because once we get the latex on, it should hold it on there pretty well. And then, to get it to kind of keep this shape, we take our aluminum foil, wrap that around here, lightly at this edge, and tighten down toward the end of the tentacle here. And there we've got our nice little flare, a little smaller than that one, so I might put some more paper in. And coming down the slide there. And then we'll do some more paper here at the end, not very much. We just want to give enough so that when we bend this, we're not corner bending it and causing it to snap. And we'll do that to all 3. Then we're going to wrap it in the blue tape and put the latex on, and that'll be in a So we have all 4 tentacles wrapped in aluminum foil and paper. Again, the paper is just to thicken it up, give it some tapering. You can use just foil here if you're going to be bending them a lot. That's what I suggest. The wire gauge that I use, hang on one second, guys. I use like a really thin baling wire for this one because I'm not expecting to do a whole bunch of stuff. It's 17 gauge. Got 350 feet for like $9. It's going to last me my yard work and this for a good long time. But you can go with a thicker picture wire or something if you wish. Or just twist that one into 3 or 4 strands if you're going to be doing a lot of bending. The stop motion on this, again, is going to be very limited, but I want it to be something I can do. Gloves, goggles, and normally I'd be wearing a rebreather or some kind of mask when I get to the latex. You won't be able to hear me very well if I do that. So I'm going to start with the tape. We'll do very little bit of latex so you can see what we're doing, and then I'm going to stop and put on my mask and, you know, do the safety stuff right. Make sure you're in a well-ventilated area when working with that casting latex. It will make you dizzy. So the tape, again, is to give a surface for the latex to stick to, because I know it likes to stick to paper and foam. You can also use foam batting in this part. I find that tends to give me a little bit of a furry, hairy kind of look, and I don't much like that idea for our Sea Monster. I'm going to take both gloves off of the taping part here. I wanted to make sure I had the gloves around because I have a tendency to get them latexed up and have not usable ones on hand. Alright, so I'm using the tape also to just tape it to the creature a bit. And all this will get covered with 2 coats of the latex and paint. I was using a thinner tape for this earlier, and I think that's going to work better overall, but we're going to crunchy this in here. This will help hold all your foil together. When using this wire, at the very end here where your wire is going to be the tip that's going to want to stick out, go thick with your foil, go thick with your paper, and go thick with your tape and latex. That is going to be your breaking point at some point when you're using this thing. These are not toys mostly because of that. You don't want little kids playing with them and getting stuck with wires. We do want to wrinkle this down so we can have wrinkles, not tape lines, when we put the latex over it. And this will go down all the tentacles all the way. You see, so up against the body, coming down this way. I'm going to stop there for this though so that I can show you this next part. I don't measure this very well. The latex, so this is a casting latex. I got mine from FX Warehouse because they seem to have the best price on the largest amount. You can pick it up in like Michael's and such. And then what's in there is a couple of drops, actually probably almost a teaspoon I got in there, of, when you first open that jar, it's something too. A couple of drops of barn red paint. It's going to go on looking pink, but it'll dry closer to its original paint color. So latex goes on a kind of fleshy color, and then when it dries, it's mostly clear and leaves you with your paint color. I use a foam brush to applicate. These are cheap and they're pretty much disposable because they will not last through many days of use. And we're going to get that tape stuck on there. We're going to go ahead and just put it right on the tape there, and we're going to put it on the tape where it connects to the body of the creature to give it some hold. And we're going to do this now. You'll be able to see some blue spots and stuff through it, and it'll be purple. And since I want to do this on blue screen rather than green, because since he's going to be underwater, any kind of blue lines around him should blend in better with that background. Same thing with the sky. Like I like to use blue for stuff that's flying, green for everything else. Of course, green if the thing is blue. So we're going to go over this enough times to cover the blue paint, the blue tape wherever we see it. But I mean, that's your basic thing. And don't go too thick with this round. You're going to get thicker as you go. Again, the latex stuff, the latex paint mixture does stick to the paper tape very well, but it sticks to itself even better. So the second coat will go on nice and thick, and then you'll be good to go. All right, we'll be back in a bit after one of these is coated and you can see what it looks like. A couple more things. You guys probably know about latex already a little bit, but in case you don't, before you work with it, ventilation, something to breathe through. You can let it air out a little bit, especially if you do a little jar mix like this at a time. And whatever surface you're going to be on, you're going to want to protect, of course. You know, I've got plastic on top of this workshop table that's full of projects. We're also doing the little cricket spaceship here. But talcum powder, you know, baby powder, I don't know if cornstarch works, but you want to put some kind of powder down wherever you're going to set this down, because parts of the latex will drip and it will want to stick to your table. So this will make it easier to remove. Last layer, you might want to be able to hang it instead, because the powder will also stick a little bit to the latex and give it that matte finish, which actually isn't bad, but like this I'll probably wind up doing something shiny on, like Vaseline or something, after we get some of the shots on Boog, so we don't want to reflect too much of the wall. But you know, we're going to want our little underwater beast to look slimy. That, and last thing about latex, make sure you're not allergic. It'll say it on the container, but test it on you somewhere inconspicuous, very small. We don't want you to have a reaction to it while you're working on it. I just dunked my phone in it. And then, you know, you have to go to the hospital and get stuff for, you know, anaphylactic shock and stuff. So just be careful with it. And I'm going to stop this video here. I know the octopus isn't finished, or the quadrupus isn't finished, but he's getting close. So I'm going to make this one, and then in part 2, we will deal with getting his eyes on there. And I'll get into that when we get to part 2. Bye-bye.